And we are going to do this now, and then I'm going to let Bull, Jay, and G. Bush do this Friday and see how our list compares to their list.
I like our odds better than theirs.
I do too, but we are going to draft the 10 players in the series you want the most. You call it the 10 best players, however you want to title this.
It's hard to frame. Like, you could frame this a bunch of different ways, right? Like, you could frame the 10 most talented players. You could frame this to 10 players you want in this series, which not necessarily
doesn't mean best.
Depending on fit, are you trying to draft your 5 best, my 5 versus your 5? There's a bunch of different ways to look at this.
Well, we're going to draft 10 players total. So it's not my 5 versus you 5. We're just going to draft the 10 players in this series. Jason Lloyd and Mikey McNuggets want the most to have.
I said on the show today, I have to admit, the Cavs came out better than I thought that they would. I said on the show today, they'd have the number 1 player, and then I wasn't sure where I would put him again. I actually when I really sort of dug in a little bit, I was pleased with how higher I had the Cavs than I thought I would.
I am very confident my top 3 is the right top 3.
Okay.
Outside of the top 3, I'm open to hearing a lot of different ideas. And real quick, before you go, Jason, there's a chat component to this in StreamYard where we are recording this podcast. I do not have that open at the moment because I get very distracted by it. I see there's 166 comments. We will go through those at the end, read a couple, but I want to know how you guys would rank the top 5 players in the series. The 5 guys, not the most talented, the 5 guys you would want on your team for this series, just like we do it for football season. So leave us a comment. We'll get to those at the end. But Jason, if we agree on a pick, we'll give 1 sentence, we'll move on. When we disagree, we'll give a little back and forth to see if we come to some kind of conclusion. So I think the first 2 are pretty obvious. Donovan Mitchell is the best player in the series. Any reason to believe he wouldn't be?
No, I had him as my number 1. That was easy.
Me too.
We had him as the number 1 last year, though, and look how that turned out.
That is true. Is Paolo Banchero your number 2 player in this series?
Yes, I have Paolo 2.
So I said I was confident in my 3.
I am not confident. I was confident in 1 and 2, and after this, it's a cluster. You know what? As far as I'm concerned,
I had Jarrett Allen at number 3.
Huh?
I had Jarrett Allen at number 3.
That's who I have.
So we're confident in number 3.
I didn't think you'd have Jarrett Allen 3, but I had Jarrett 3.
You go first. Why did you put Jarrett 3rd?
Because he's been more effective this year on the floor for the Cavs. He's been more important. I thought I might have a Magic player 3 and maybe even 4. And then when I really started to dig in, I was like, no. Jarrett, to me, he's a pillar to what they do defensively. Evan's obviously very good defensively too, but Jarrett Allen seems to be a tent pole to what they do defensively. He's and I mean, listen, this guy had the worst series of anybody last year, the worst series, and now we're calling him the 3rd most important here. But he's bounced back with a terrific year, and I'm confident. Well, I'm as confident as I can be at putting him 3, but this whole order I think is jumbled after 2. I think you could make a case for a couple different guys.
I went with him at 3, and I didn't think much of it. I'll be honest, because the Magic players who I have on my list, and there's a couple more coming, are unproven in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Which Jarrett Allen is as well. Which he is as well. But that kind of negates it. I couldn't say, well, he played terrible in the playoffs last year. Well, I don't know how these guys are going to play.
Right.
I think up to this point, Jarrett Allen has done everything he humanly possibly could to redeem himself from last postseason shortcomings. Now, is that enough to erase what happened against New York? No. But you can only do what you can do up until the point you are at the current present time. And to this point, he had a tremendous regular season. He was right in the All-Star discussion. He's the only player outside of Donovan and Paolo who was even on the fringe of the All-Star discussion.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, I can't imagine what happened against New York last season happens again. We've spoken to him almost every game for the last 3 weeks, Jason. He understands the magnitude of what's at stake. He understands the perception of this team, the reality of what happened, and he seems committed to kind of changing that narrative. And he said against Indiana after that game, the only way we can change it is by our actions.
That's right. He's right.
And words are not actions. But the fact that he's acknowledging the fact he understands that's what has to happen to change this soft label around this team gives me at least a little bit of hope that he'll be the one leading the charge to kind of change that perception. So we have the same first 3. Donovan 1, Paolo 2, Jarrett Allen 3.
Yep.
Jason, who'd you go with at number 4?
Evan Mobley.
I went with a different guy. I went with Darius Garland.
I have Darius much lower.
Can I tell you why I went Darius 4?
I think I know what you're going to say, but go ahead and say it.
So I have concerns that against this Orlando defense, you can play two bigs. This half-court defense is too good on Orlando's side. They're too big. I think you need spacing to try and spread them out. Darius, I loved what I saw at the end of the Indiana game. He turned away Donovan Mitchell on a play that I'm still convinced was drawn up for Donovan. I don't care what he says. I know what my eyes tell me. Hits the step-back three for the winner. That gives him some confidence moving in. He has been so up and down, and maybe I'm a little too high on Darius, but I also, for this series, guys I want for this series, I'm not quite sure how a non-shooting forward fits in against an Orlando defense that is long, lanky, athletic. I don't know where Evan fits. So for that reason, I had to drop him a little bit lower, and I went with Darius at 4.
Well, I went Evan at 4 because, again, I base this on the 10 most talented players I want on my team. And for that, and given the year, Evan Mobley, now the shooting has not come around. But I think sometimes it's swinging too far the other way. Evan Mobley had a terrific year.
He did.
He had a really, really good year.
He's on my list, by the way. He is on my list.
Yeah. Now, the three-point shot has not developed to the point. I have a sneaking suspicion he's going to hit some threes in this series, some big-time threes. We'll see. I hope. I also said Mike Miller was going to win the Cavs a playoff game. So what do I know?
And Danny Green was going to save the Cavs at some point.
No. Don't you do that to me. I said they had to play him because he at least had the ability to make shots. That's what I said. I died on the Mike Miller hill, but the Danny Green was just you got to have somebody out there who can spread the floor and stretch the floor and make shots. And Danny could do that, but he did not end up helping them last year either because he was playing on one leg. But Mobley, to me, is incredibly talented, and I just think he had a better year across the board than what he gets credit for. And I'm just like, hand up. I made a big deal about this too. You got to shoot threes in order to stay on the floor with Jarrett. You're right. And I don't know, and it may just be another where they're alternating these guys like they did during the season for much of the season. But Evan Mobley is too good and too talented of a player not to have an impact on this series. I had to put him number 4.
So I had Mobley 6. Where'd you have Darius?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
So Evan gets the 4 spot by the aggregate score.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because you had 4 and 6 for Mobley, and it was 4 and 7. So he had 1 less point, which means Evan Mobley gets the 4 spot.
And real quick, just on Darius, he's been too inconsistent this year. He's made terrible decisions at big time moments. He's dribbling way too much. And I just don't trust him right now. And I don't trust his shot. And I said, you and I disagreed on this. I said in February, I don't know if you can have him on the floor at closing time right now. And right now, I think I stand by that. He did hit a big shot at the Indiana. You're right. And we're going to get as part of the Donovan conversation why that was such a big deal. But he's just been too inconsistent. Now, if he gets it going early and he has a big game, obviously that changes. Playoff games are moment by moment. Mm-hmm. You can't sit here and script out what's going to happen in the 43rd moment, who's going to be on the floor in the 44th moment of the playoff game. It's more feel and hot hand than any other time of the year. But I just right now, as we sit here today, I don't have a lot of faith in Darius Garland right now.
So to recap our top 4, Donovan Mitchell 1, Paolo Banchero 2, Jarrett Allen 3, Evan Mobley 4, and Jason, I put this guy at number 5. Jonathan Isaac.
Yeah.
Defensive Swiss Army knife. He's coming on strong towards the end of the regular season. He hit a couple threes against Milwaukee in their regular season finale. What he does defensively, his ability to switch against a pick and roll happy Cavs offense, he can guard truly 1 through 5. I think his ability defensively is the single most valuable asset left on the board. It feels crazy to pick a guy who's averaging like 20 minutes per game as the 5th player you'd want in the series. But I think his ability to shut down anyone from Darius to Jarrett Allen to Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley in between. I went with Jonathan Isaac at 5, and I'm probably crazy for putting him that high, but I put Jonathan Isaac at 5.
I had him 6.
Who'd you have 5?
Jalen Suggs. I have Suggs 5th because I believe in. I just got done saying there's no one that strikes fear in you is the heart of the 3-point shooter, but his shot has come around. It's funny, he's sort of that Okoro piece for them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
like
very much so.
He's a defensive lockdown stalwart. I don't know if anyone really believes that the shot is real or not, but we're about to find out. Like, was never a great 3-point shooter until this year really sort of emerged. And in fact, I think if you look at the percentages, I don't know about catch and shoots, but I think overall percentage, Suggs and Okoro are almost identical.
Pretty similar.
I think. Yeah. And
just around 40%.
So
I had Suggs a little lower, by the way. So Isaac's if you had him at 6.
I had Isaac 6. I had Suggs 5 and Isaac 6.
I have Suggs at 8. So off aggregate, that means Isaac will round out our top 5, which has 3 Cavs and 2 Magic players.
Nice.
Jason, I already told you I had Darius Garland 4. I think you had him 6. Or you had him 7.
7.
So this is the Garland versus Suggs. Then let's debate it. Garland versus Suggs. I had Garland ahead of Suggs. You had Suggs ahead of Garland. Tell me why first.
Defensive component
ahead of Garland.
Just the defensive component of Suggs. I think he can make life miserable on Donovan. And that was really the tipping point. I don't trust Darius on offense. Mm-hmm. He's not good enough defensively. I don't know that I'm talking out both sides of my mouth. I feel like I don't know that I totally trust Suggs as a 3-point shooter, but he has certainly improved. There's no question. And what he gives them defensively and his ability to go on Donovan won out for me.
So I love the Ryan Russillo podcast, and his head producer is Cerruti, who's a big Orlando Magic fan. And on multiple occasions throughout the season, Cerruti threw out his dream scenario of the Magic trading a bunch of assets for Darius Garland. So based off that logic alone, if the Magic and a diehard Magic fan and someone who I think is pretty intelligent when it comes to talking about the Orlando Magic is using their dream scenario of getting a point guard like Darius Garland to pair with a Jalen Suggs, that kind of gave me the nudge. On top of that, for Darius, in the playoffs, and we saw it last year, this is the perfect example against the Knicks. They blitzed Donovan every single time he was in a pick and roll. Yeah. And the best way to beat a blitz, kick it back and let the other person, other guard, whoever it is, your outlet, go 4-on-3 against the defense. And if Orlando, who doesn't have to, by the way, because Jalen and Jonathan Isaac are that good defensively, they can.
I don't think they will. I don't think they will. Yeah.
If they do decide to blitz, then I trust Darius going 4-on-3 more than I trust Jalen Suggs' offense. Suggs is so hot and cold, and he's gotten much better this season. Like he was, I don't want to say he was being written off before this season, but his stock was at not a very good point before the year. He's had a better season, but at the end of the day, Jalen Suggs averaged 12-3, 12-3-1, 2, Jason. I mean, Darius still averaged 18-6. It was an ugly 18-6, and we expect more from him. But that's why I went with Darius.
I should probably explain myself, because if you ask me if I need a player for a regular, like if I'm picking a player for a team for a season, I'm taking Darius Garland over Jalen Suggs. But in a playoff series, with the way that Jalen can defend and with as bad of a year as Darius has had, that's why I put Suggs ahead of him. In the totality, the totality of a career, I think Darius is going to bounce back and be fine.
Yes,
so I would take Darius Garland as a player over Jalen Suggs, but for the purpose of this exercise in this series and the way they're playing right now and what they provide right now, I give Suggs the edge.
So I'll end it with this, and then we can decide where we go. Just like Isaac last season, Jason, will the Cavs guard Jalen Suggs, or will they play 4-on-5 on a defensive standpoint against Orlando? Are they going to need Jalen Suggs to prove he can make a shot before they guard him? And if the answer is yes, I feel like we have to go Darius, and I'll concede Jalen's probably the next guy.
That's a great question that I hadn't considered, because the only guy that you would double off him for is Banchero. Who else on that team are you doubling off Suggs to guard?
Well, I mean, Franz Wagner had a terrible shooting season this year. He shot just 28% from 3, but he's a much better player and a much better shooter than the traditional numbers indicate.
Are you really going to lay off a guard
No.
though, to double him? No,
I'm not doubling Franz to lay off Suggs. I don't think, frankly, I'm not doubling anybody or not leaving anybody one-on-one to double Banchero. I think if they're going to beat you, you have to let those guys beat you. So I'm not sure if that's the strategy Cleveland will go with defensively. If I was running the show, that's how I would go. But if you are going to help off, I mean, Wendell Carter shot 34% from 3. It's hard to double a big from big to big.
Right.
You have Franz Wagner, who, shot 28% from 3. It's 10% lower than Suggs, but I think he's probably a better overall shooter.
I will concede to you and go Darius and then Suggs. I'll concede that.
I'm fine with that. So then we got 3 more spots, Jason. Before we give it out, this is for 8, 9, and 10. On your list, how many Magic players do you have in this final 3?
1.
Me too. Is it Franz Wagner?
Yeah.
Where'd you have him?
Next. I have him 8.
I had him next as well.
8. That was easy.
His numbers are good. 19 points, 5 rebounds, a decent playmaker. His shooting percentages were down. Milwaukee was playing like 5 feet off him in the regular season finale. They were giving him the legit Isaac Okoro treatment last year.
Yeah.
But I trust the talent, 20-point per game scorer. He's their second option offensively, and he's a pretty good defender. So I think Wagner falls in there. I'm very curious to see how you went 9 and 10 for the Cavs.
I went Strus 9, Max Strus 9, and Isaac Okoro 10.
Dead ass. Can you see my phone? That's exactly
You have the same thing?
Exactly how I did it.
Yeah, that's
Strus
really
9, Isaac 10.
Yeah.
Here, you tell us why Strus is 9. I'll tell you why Okoro's 10.
Strus is 9 because of what he can do offensively. He may not be a great shot maker, but he and Donovan have this pick and roll action that they've run at times this year that's really hard for teams to guard, and they get great success out of it. He's got the playoff experience, obviously the postseason experience that they didn't have last year. And so I didn't even have him on the list at first, to be honest. And the more I thought about it, really, it was this postseason success that put him on the list for me and jumped him over Okoro. And it's funny because basically Strus was brought here to replace Okoro, if we're being honest. And yet Isaac still makes the list, obviously, for his defensive ability. But I couldn't leave Strus off. They brought him here for this purpose, for postseason games, to be that guy, to be the guy that doesn't get rattled, that stays cool. And I just think what he gives them offensively, despite not being maybe a prolific three-point shooter, is enough to put him 9th on this list.
I also put him 9th because I think he's a better defensive player than Isaac Okoro is an offensive player. Plus, his offense is crucial in his shooting ability.
Yeah.
2 numbers that stand out for Isaac Okoro, by the way. He's obviously increased his three-point shooting. But against the Magic this season, there may not have been a better individual one-on-one defender against Paolo Banchero than Isaac Okoro. In nearly 12 minutes of action against each other as his primary defender over the course of 4 games this season, he held Paolo to 6 points on 2 of 10 shooting and forced a turnover. He stole the ball from him. We mentioned earlier, Paolo is a monster. I cannot emphasize that enough. If you are unfamiliar with Paolo Banchero's game, you will be very familiar soon enough because that guy is going to be a stalwart and a stud across this league.
You're going to be familiar in about 2 weeks. About 2 weeks, you're going to be familiar with him.
But Isaac did a tremendous job staying in front of him, forcing him into tough shots. And all you can do against a guy like Paolo, who's 6'10", strong, athletic, is contest. Make him shoot over. You can't give him easy looks. And Isaac made him work for all his buckets in those 4 contests. So to recap our top 10, Jason, and I can't believe we had as many similarities as we did. We had Donovan 1, Paolo Banchero 2, Jarrett Allen 3, Evan Mobley 4, Jonathan Isaac 5, Darius Garland 6, Jalen Suggs 7, Franz Wagner 8, Max Strus 9, and Isaac Okoro 10. We will compare those answers to how Bull, G, and J do on Friday.